All right, welcome. So today I'm going to go through a bunch of read alouds in science, in history, in geography. A bunch of different topics you can start them anywhere kindergarten to grade 2. So you take a look and you decide. I'm going to go through them quickly so you shouldn't be bored and tell you what I liked. And generally what I didn't like, I left out because I thought that's going to be too long a video. And it's also personal preference, right? Okay, so first we have products of the day, and which is also what we did today, because what we did today is we played tic-tac-toe gobblers. So you put that down, and then I can take one of these and I can gobble you up if I want. And then you gobble me up. But then once you're at the big one, no one can gobble anyone up. So it just adds a new element of strategy when it comes to tic-tac-toe. Now, yes, I was going to stand to film the video, and then I'm like, nah, it's a little cold. Why don't I get in bed under the blankets? So you're joining me in blankets and books. So let's talk about what I did today. And what we did today was we did this. Right now I'm going through this book, Moving Beyond the Page, and we talked about, we didn't really do this, but we focused on how everything that we utilize in the human world is made from natural resources. So we discussed that, and then my kindergartner did the math down here just because he's a little advanced and was a little irritated when I made him do it properly instead of just adding it in his head. No, let's do 8 plus 3 and let's do that and then add that up. So that's kind of what we did. So sometimes randomly you could just put some questions down and have them write answers. So I basically mention these things just so that you can use them for ideas, or if you want to purchase a curriculum, get the curriculum. Okay, so let's get to it. Now remember, I told you I'm going to go through it quickly because I don't want you bored. I actually do have some books that I'm going to mention that I don't like. So let's talk about some read alouds, but also some picture books, I guess, that teach some subjects. No, never mind. I'm not starting that. I have a huge pile. I'm just going to go through it. The Adventures of a South Pole Pig. Very interesting. Just started it. And what it is she's a dreamer. She's a pig that is determined to go to the South Pole, I think. And she's never left the farm, but she's determined to become a sled pig. So she goes to Antarctica, which actually I don't know if that's the South. I think that's the South Pole, but I'm not sure. This is Sophie Mouse. Let me show you inside. So there's lots of pictures. So this can be read on their own or when they're little. So it's just about Sophie and how she makes a new friend. Let me show you in here just in case, there's not a lot of pictures in there. So this is great. This is really good. I have another book up there for when they get a bit older, but it's not as interesting. These books are super interesting, and they got a lot of pictures. They're chapter books. And it's Mercy Watson. If you can read anything about Mercy Watson, she's very interesting. All right, next up, these are, so 1G, by the time you get to 1G, see, look up there, this is a Becca, 1G. You get into some interesting stories. Previously, and I had a whole stack of them here, these ones are not very interesting because these are learning to read. And so I previously, when I brag about these books, I forgot to tell people these are not that interesting because they're learning to read in these specific books, like in these young books here, in 1A, 1E. See, 1E is starting to get interesting. That's Kind and Brave. But look at 1C. They're okay, but 1A and B especially, watch it. Tiptoes. Tiptoes not that interesting. Tiptoes not that interesting because you're learning to read in these books is kind of the theory. But once you start getting through them, Abeka has very interesting books with morals in their stories and stuff. And this is the one, the Happy King, The Way to Be Happy. And someone is working at the mill, and the mill's very happy. So the man who owns the mill. And so he goes to the mill, and he tries to get him to explain to him why he's so happy. So I really think these are good. The Kingdom of Renly was not a huge hit in our house, but, it's good. And especially if a kid is able to read it on his own, I guess. Or maybe it's a read aloud and it might be a hit. So basically he's a prince. And he wants a friend, and his father bars him from having friends, but says, fine, you can play this one girl and be friends with her. And so that's kind of the Kingdom of Renly. This is the first book in a series. Dragon Masters, same thing. We started reading it. Also interesting because he has to become a dragon master. He's trained it. And again, I only started reading it a bit because it just was not liked. It's interesting, but for some reason, he didn't want to read about dragons. I don't know. I thought, how could he not? This sounds so interesting. But he didn't. But I thought it was interesting. But there you go, Dragon Masters, Rise of the Earth Dragon. So there's two types of books. There's books where you learn morals from it, and there's books where just for pure enjoyment you read. And I think that falls under pure enjoyment. The Dolphin Adventure, so HBL wanted us to read this book, and it's very short, and it's okay. I mean, it is kind of interesting, so I'm not saying it's not interesting. It's kind of interesting. Basically, it's based on a true story of this guy and how he helps rescue this little baby bald-nosed dolphin. So I will say it's interesting. It's a very fast read. Some of these books are very fast reads. Growing Up in Early America, that's 2F, but it's so interesting that I started reading it now. And yeah, I mean, I just find it interesting about the Patriot and about the Native American and about, just different, just so interesting about Gwen the Pilgrim and their various stories about what their life is like. So that's a 2F from Rebecca. $14 on Amazon. I love it. It's one of my favorites. So Balto, the bravest dog that ever lived. True story of Balto. I love true stories because some of them are super interesting. And this one about the dog, he's a sled dog and he brings medicine. And so it's just really interesting. Really interesting story. I like it. Let me show you the pictures. Now, some of the topics I saved till later just because, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Because some of the stories, if they're too scary or they're too intense, they're not going to be well received by one of my children. So I push them up. But this one, Balto, I think is pretty good. Greetings from Somewhere is a whole series based on different countries and different mysteries. They are homeschooled. Their dad homeschools them, and they get to go out and solve different mysteries. Very good. Very good it's just, they're interesting books. They teach you stuff while you're reading them. Yeah, they're called Greetings from Somewhere. It's a nice series. Magic Tree House, I don't care for them. I don't find them. I just don't like them, but my son does like them, so we do read some of them, and you do learn a bit from them, I suppose. So there you go. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this series. If your child loves it, right, then, hey, that's what you want, is them interested in reading. So there you go. Nate the Great, he is a very interesting detective, the world's greatest detective, if you will, and, an interesting story. It has lots of pictures, which I think is great, especially if the story may not be that interesting. And what's not to like about Nate? Nate is before his time. He is like kind of a grown-up in a little boy's body, almost. Some of his thoughts sometimes. Dolphin Treasure, I thought this was a continuation to that one I had just showed you, so I don't know which one I had read. Sharks are closing in, the baby dolphin. So this is like the next one in line, so I can't say if I read it or not. I feel like I have. They rescue him. Oh, we started reading it. There is my dog-eared pages. So we had started reading it. So, I mean, sure. It's a true story. I like true stories. Interesting enough, I suppose. This was good. This is interesting enough. And you can read it in grade 1. And it's all about, so the Sassafras Science series, you can read it whenever you want, right? Like, it's a read aloud. But it's just about two kids that go through time. And they have to go through, not time, but they go through, I don't know. It's how they get to places from America to Africa, for example, for this book, to study zoology, because they had failed summer school and they're twins. So this is their punishment, is they got to go and you got to find some information on, elephants, and there's different tasks. And they have a bunch of books they have based on the 5 different areas of science, physics, because apparently they just failed everything. And so not bad. The Wump World. I definitely like the Wump World. It was interesting to read, and it's interesting. It's about the Wump World, and it really is. It really is an interesting story. Like, they come to this planet, and then some stuff happens on this planet, and then civilization starts to move in, and what the heck? So, interesting, and definitely worth talking about. Okay, Tornado. It's all right. 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 So Tornado, a lot of programs recommend it. This is interesting. This is about a little mouse, and she becomes a housekeeper at a very fancy hotel in the forest. So kind of cool. No pictures in it. No pictures. Oh, a little bit. Some pictures, but this is The Great Cake Mystery. So this is a girl it's basically, she's a detective. She's an African girl who, her dad tells her a story. She falls in love with being a detective, and it's her first case. So it is an interesting read. let's talk about Aesop's Fables. Aesop's Fables is my favorite way to I have Rebecca's Aesop Fables. I have another Aesop Fables that a lot of programs recommend, and this is my favorite. This is from, oh, I'll put her name down there, Bonnie Rose Hudson. I love Bonnie Rose Hudson curriculum. I have a ton of it. Let me show you through. So let me show you a story, how we go through it. Okay, so this is the dog and his reflection. Okay, so then he tells you the story of a dog and his reflection, and then you can color some pictures about the dog and his reflection, and then it tells you the moral of the story. Don't lose what you have by being greedy for what you don't. And then you can fill in some missing letters in there, some missing words, kind of fill it in. Same with, again, a fill-in thing, an animal that makes a good pet, a dog, right? So this is for grade 1, and then you read the story again. So I don't always do all of those, but then we read the story again, and then they can read dog, meat, pond, bridge. So they can fill in the words there, just so that they get reinforcement of the story. And then comprehension questions. Was the dog happy or sad at the beginning of the story? What did the dog have in his mouth? What did he think when he saw another dog? So these are a bunch of Aesop's Fables for about $6.99 last time I checked. Okay, if you have a child who is precocious and wants to learn about the Second World War, this is Usborne Flat Book. They don't have, it's not as scary as the real Second World War. I'll tell you that. I suppose, if you will, it's not as gory. So that is an option. This, A Street Through Time, of course, very good. A Street Through Time. It's very cool. They have Cities Through Time. They have a bunch of them through time, but the Street Through Time is my favorite. And then if you want, you can look up 5. So find 5. And, it tells you what things are. So keep and the castle, and there's the keep, then the stone castle and the medieval town. They go all the way through until the Street of the Future. Look at that. It's got lots of different words. The robotics lab. Okay, so Street Through Time. Very popular, very cool. This is Your Life as a Settler. What I like is that it talks about bathing. It talks about, basically you're starring in, a play about what it's like, your life as a settler in colonial America. This is 3 Young Pilgrims. This one was interesting. This one, they go across the boat. They do lose their mother when they first arrive, so sometimes that's not a hit in my family. Like if the subject matter is too serious. But they do end up, it is happy because they do make friends and they do work out things, and it does tell you real information about what really, some of the real behind the scenes stuff that maybe you don't normally hear about. So I like that. Ugh, don't worry. I'm heading on to grade 2 in a minute. And that's shorter. History for Little Pilgrims. History for Little Pilgrims. I've showed you this book before. It's very interesting. I started reading right when they come to America. So when they come to America, what it's like, the beginning of America, how things come to be in America regarding the church. A lot of it is regarding the church. So there you go. History for Little Pilgrims. Not bad. Kind of interesting. If you have someone who might be more inspired with comic books, you can read about Max Axiom, Super Scientist. I got a couple books here. I got one up in the grade 2 ones too. But anyway, it is about, I'm almost done here. It is about, it's just a comic book about light, and I have them in all different things because they came with No Science, so that's where I got a bunch of them. This is a drop around the world, and it is great about water. It's just kind of intensive. It's a lot of pages about how water, look at your tears and look at, take a look at this. It's just water and how water comes and is used and the processes it goes through in various cities and environments around the world. So kind of interesting. And then we got, Gail Gibbons. If you can find any books by Gail Gibbons, even in kindergarten, you can start them because they're just, and there's full curriculums based on Gail Gibbons. I'll put the name on the screen who does the curriculums for them. They're not much, and they're, because what I like is it's very to the point. It's very interesting. It doesn't have a lot of words. You're just getting to the point. You're learning the important stuff and moving on. And same with the Moon book. So that's how she does it, is on the bottom. She teaches you important stuff about it. You can get all these books at the library, and I find them really interesting. So let's go grade 2. Also I would mention is Tuttle Twins. we've read a few Tuttle Twins books, and I love the Tuttle Twins. So these books are going to be my grade 2 read alouds. I think are very good. Just because the subject matter or something sad happens, it didn't work for grade 1. But Madame Pamplemousse and Her Incredible Edibles, there's a few books about this. It is really good. It's about a little girl and she becomes like a chef in Paris. Oh, I just think interesting. Wagon Wheels, this was not a big hit because it's about a family that is not white, which good because there's way too many white stories about white people everywhere. And it's sad because they lose their mother and then they're worried about starving to death. So it's in the olden days. They head to Kansas and I don't know when you call it. They're pioneers, I suppose it is, because they got wagon wheels. But anyway, there you go. It's called Wagon Wheels. So it wasn't a huge hit for grade 1 because of the subject matter, just because it was a little sad, which, hey, sometimes stories are. This I haven't read. I just started reading it, and it was Rush Revere, The Brave Pilgrims. And very interesting. It is very interesting. So that, I guess, Rush Limbaugh, which I'm not political, so don't bother telling me what you like or hate about Rush Limbaugh. But it was supposed to be very interesting, and that's why I read it. And he does make history. It seems very interesting thus far from what I've read. This is Geography Facts for Sharp Minds. The world's highest capital city. Russian and U.S. borders are both reachable on foot. Have you ever heard about the snowfall in the Sahara Desert? The first city to reach 1 million residents. Time zones and it's really interesting facts about a runway with a road crossing. Oh, interesting. This is really interesting too. This is Christian Liberty, Nature Reader. It's interesting. I think because you can read, what I love about it too is you can read like Unit 1, Wasps. And so then you can read about what? It's only like 3 pages. I'm huge into books that have short chapters because then we can read them while we're eating. We just read a bit more on the paper wasp and then we move on to, the next day it's like the digger wasp. So it's nature. It covers a variety, learning about birds. It just covers a variety of animals in nature. It's got some questions about it. They're very easy concepts, which I like. They are not complicated, so they are great for little kids, even grade 1s. I think it's good. The Year of Miss Agnes, this I haven't read. So it is, I guess what happens, generally I don't like award-winning books, but I must have read a few pages and decided that it was interesting enough. And this town needs a teacher, and they bring in this teacher, and she's like, they're not going to last a year, way up somewhere that is remote. And kind of interesting thus far. This is January Jones. If you like mystery books, I don't know. She's interesting. And she's like, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, wow, it's kind of a witty book. So a little too witty for grade 1s, in my opinion. So that's why I put it in the grade 2s. But The Case of Hermie the Missing Hamster. This is Roxy. Oh, I can't wait till we can read Roxy. Do not panic. So she was funny. That's why I'm saving it. You can read it when they're younger, but I want them to be able to enjoy it. And I don't think you can enjoy it in grade 1. That's why I saved it. Roxy and the Hooligans. She has this uncle that helps write the Book of Pitfalls and how to survive them. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. The World According to Humphrey. This is on a lot of state reading lists. I don't think it's that enjoyable. That's not true. I just haven't read that far in, and I don't know if we're going to read it, but I included it because it is along some state route lists. No, you know what? I did start reading it, and I thought it was kind of entertaining, but I thought it was pretty young for grade 1. So that's why I pushed it up to the grade 2, and I might even say grade 3, because there's just some wittiness about this book that I thought may not come across at the young age of grade 1. This one I started reading in grade 1. I pushed it up because it was not as interesting. She does the pig books. The pig books down here, Kate D. Camillo. And so I thought it would be as interesting. So far, it's really not that interesting. And it really is, it's just, I don't know. I definitely don't think for grade 1. So I pushed it up to grade 2, but even grade 3, maybe. We'll see. History Smashers, very good. I have a lot of History Smashers books. I think they're very interesting. And it's really just about the inaccuracies of what you read about a topic. So this would be the Titanic. I got ones about plagues and stuff. And yeah, interesting. I can't wait. Now, I have a Titanic fanatic, so this might be a little, you could read this all the way up to grade, adults could read it. But I'm going to start it at grade 1 to 2. We'll see. Diary of Minecraft Zombie. They loved it. And it's because I have a kindergartner who's scared of a lot of stuff, but loves Minecraft, of course, because, he's got older brothers. And these and the Captain Underpants, they love reading them. So I read them because I want them to enjoy stuff. Like when we're out, if we got to sit in someplace where I'm desperate for them to sit down and pay attention, I can pull out these books. And I'm not saying they're not bad. They're interesting. The only thing I don't like is that they talk about, I could have sworn they talked about kissing in one of them. Not like they don't go in depth about it, but such and such kiss such and such because they like them or something, or they want to kiss them or something. So I do think it's kind of for older kids, but they didn't really notice that. I noticed that and I was like, oh, I don't think they're talking about that. Okay, this, of course, I think grade 2 would probably be the best year for it. It's just human body theater. I've showed you 100 times, and it's a skeleton that puts on a play about the human body. So breathing. Act 3, the respiratory system. So he takes off taking off his Act 2 costume, his muscles, and getting ready. And lastly, zombies and electricity. Yeah, I got monsters and magnetism. I got a few of these. They're all right. They teach you a lot of interesting concepts. And yeah, so this can I would say grade 2 and up, even though I read in grade 1. To my grade 1, I still think it's good. All right. There you go. I left out a lot of books that I didn't care for generally. But there you go. There's some read-alouds for you. I hope you like them. I hope you watch this video. And I attached some other books at the end. Take a look at that video because it's like 400 books in okay, it's not that many. It's like 100 books. No. It's like 40 books in 1 minute or something that I go through. So anyway, take a look at it, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Can you say, please like and subscribe?
Please like to like.
And hit the bell for notifications.
Hit the bell for notifications.